Hi, I'm Joe Himali. I'm a content creator and a real estate agent. I've been an agent for 26 years. I'm a native Washingtonian, and I love my home city of Washington, D.C. Today we're in Kalorama. Kalorama was originally occupied by a native tribe called the Anacostia or Nacotchtank, which was later changed into Anacostan, which is where the term Anacostia comes from. So Anacostia, the neighborhood, and the Anacostia River were named after the Nacotchtank people. The area where we're standing now was part of an original 600-acre tract of land that was given to John Langworth, who was a servant of King Charles I. It was given to him in 1633. The original 600 acres is now divided into two sections: Sheridan Kalorama to the west of Connecticut Avenue and Kalorama Triangle on the east side. The land was later occupied by Anthony Holmead, who renamed it Widow's Mite, which is named after a biblical story. He then built a house here called Rock Hill. The house was located at what is now 23rd and S Streets Northwest, but at the time it was still part of Maryland, because the city of Washington wasn't formed until 1791. The city was designed by Pierre L'Enfant, and the northern edge of the city was called Boundary Street, what is now called Florida Avenue. And actually, that's the southern border of Kalorama. In 1794, the land was transferred to Gustavus Scott, who was an attorney, and he did a lot of improvements to the property and called it Bel Air. But unfortunately, he overspent on his improvements. He sold off two parcels of land, one for a grist mill and one for a paper mill. Scott passed away in 1803, and then the land was acquired by William Augustine Washington, who was a nephew of George Washington. He only occupied the property for a few years and then sold it to Joel Barlow, who was a diplomat and poet. Now, Joel Barlow, when he acquired it, thought Bel Air was too common a name, so he renamed it Kalorama, which is Greek for beautiful vista. Barlow improved the entire estate and built a second house on the highest portion of the land. Barlow then renovated and expanded the original house, and it was done by his friend, Benjamin Henry Latrobe, who was the second architect of the capital and is considered the father of architecture in the United States. Barlow had many influential friends, including Thomas Jefferson and Robert Fulton. In fact, Robert Fulton was here visiting, and Barlow actually dammed up Rock Creek Park so Fulton could practice his steamships on Rock Creek. In 1817, 34 acres of land in what is now called Kalorama Triangle was sold to William Thornton, who was the first architect of the capital, although he never lived there. The next owner of that parcel of land was John Little, who built an estate there called Cliffbourne, and that estate was located where Kalorama Park is now. As he lived there, his business and his family thrived, and he built a carriage house and several industrial buildings on that site of land. During the Civil War, the estate was commandeered and was used as barracks for soldiers and for cavalry, and later it became a hospital as well. In fact, Walt Whitman, the poet, actually would come and visit wounded soldiers at the hospital there. When Little died in 1876, his 5 daughters inherited a $1 million estate and sold it off. The final owner was Marion C. Stone, who passed away in 1899, which was the same year that the Cliffbourne estate was torn down. Kalorama was originally part of an area called Washington County, and the 1871 Organic Act brought Washington County into Washington City. And when that happened, it expanded the city beyond its original boundary at Boundary Street and brought Kalorama into Washington, D.C. In the 1870s and 1880s, there was explosive growth in Kalorama. Streets were subdivided, sewer lines were installed, and they built the Woodley Lane Bridge, which connected Kalorama over to Woodley Park. There were other improvements, including the trolley line that went up Columbia Road. And that's when Kalorama Triangle really separated from Sheridan Kalorama, because Kalorama Triangle, being close to the trolley line, had much more dense development as opposed to the Sheridan Kalorama side, where it was larger houses and estates. At the end of the Gilded Age, in the late 19th and early 20th century, this area was still undeveloped, and the very wealthy families started to move here and build giant mansions, including the Anderson House on Massachusetts Avenue. Because of its proximity to downtown and the big mansions that were built here, this area was very attractive to the wealthy in Washington, including President Woodrow Wilson, who moved here on S Street after his presidency. In fact, Kalorama has been home to more presidents than any other place in the United States, other than the White House. Kalorama is the epicenter of architectural styles in Washington, D.C. They range across the board, from Beaux-Arts to Georgian Revival, to postmodern, to streamlined modern, to Churrigueresque. You've got everything here. And in fact, it's part of a historic district with over 350 contributing properties within the district. Everything you'd want to see is right here in Kalorama.